I've recently asked myself what character would have been able to just completely win the Marineford war all by themselves. Like Rocks? Emu? Shanks? Well, maybe, but recently I've actually been more curious about a different character that not only has one of the most broken powers in anime that would absolutely fit into this clash of titans, but also just seems to be a surprisingly suitable personality for One Piece as a whole. I'm talking about my favorite white-haired boy, Satoru Gojo, and you know that I like a character when the One Piece guy here makes not one, not two, but 3 Gojo videos on his One Piece channel. And so I just said, screw it, today is finally gonna be the day that we're talking about one of my favorite anime characters and putting him into my favorite battle to answer one question and one question only: could Gojo actually solo Marineford? Now I think there is just no other way to answer that question than just dropping him straight into it, pretty much Fortnite style. Meaning that the first question I needed to find an answer here for was, how does he survive that massive fall? Does he use blue to create a platform to land on, or red to reverse himself safely to the ground? And honestly, it's probably going to be even easier than that, because it kind of gets lost in all of the crazy fighting and hot thirst trap TikToks, but I remembered that Gojo can just straight up float. Now, despite looking into it, I don't really know if this is because of the Limitless or him using reverse red here, but yeah, the man can just straight up levitate. I guess it's just one of those perks for being the honored one. So now that he's actually landed on the ground at Marineford, what does he actually do and why? Obviously, having just been dropped into the One Piece world, Gojo generally has no reason to fight here until he looks up and sees someone imprisoned on the execution platform. Long black hair, teen heartthrob, and sad. Is that Megumi? Now, of course, you and me, we both know that this is actually Ace, but I genuinely think that the only reason he'd probably stick around and fight is if Gojo had to save his little buddy here. And I mean, come on, it's a hypothetical. I'm allowed to take like some narrative leaps once in a while, okay? Cool? Alright. The real question floating through his mind at the moment is probably why Megumi got captured and didn't try to self-destruct everyone with Mahoraga like he does pretty much every other time in the anime. Anyhow, in my mind, the thing that we really have to consider here is how Gojo reacts when he really pays attention to his 6 eyes. Because all of these people he sees are massive, have really weird bodies, and most importantly, would have a different flow of energy to them than regular people. Like, their cursed energy isn't behaving how he'd be used to, and that would be really exciting to Gojo because it's something new for him to learn, and we know that he's excited about that stuff. After all, I'm pretty sure the last time he needed to learn how to do something new was his battle with Toji, when he just straight up unlocked reverse curse technique. And you know as a One Piece fan that he better go learn quickly because now a giant bear man is attacking him. Daddy Gojo, watch out! It's a pacifista! Just kidding. I mean, Gojo could probably just crush it with blue. The pacifista don't use any haki whatsoever, so it's not like his abilities would be cancelled by them anyways. But at the same time, let's be real, that's probably about as far as he'd get without at least learning the basics of how the One Piece power system even works. But one thing that we do know for sure is that Gojo is a fast worker and learner and picks things up super quickly and easily. If I really had to hedge my bets here, I think that using his 6 eyes, a power that literally sees the inside and flow of people, the flow of energy, like a sort of super advanced thermal vision / CAT scan, he'd just be able to mentally work out how armament and observation haki work pretty fast. Honestly, realistically, I don't even think that he'd need observation at this stage, so pretty much just armament even. And his 6 eyes give him such insane vision that he might already outscale regular observation haki users pre-time skip pretty easily here. So really, I feel like all he's going to need is a good example, and luckily, since I had him drop in with the prison breakers, Jinbei is right there. We do know that he is a master of armament haki, and so Gojo would just need to use his 6 eyes technique to start seeing how his body manipulates the energy around and inside of him, this type of willpower, and then would, I think, probably get the hang of it pretty quickly. And this is a power that will be really helpful for him, I think, especially because it's so different from cursed energy. I mean, Gojo has incredible willpower, as he's literally brought himself back from from death's door against Toji and then rewrote his brain in his battle with Sukuna. I'm just gonna throw it out there, I think that if Haki existed in JJK, he would just straight up dwarf everyone except for maybe Yuji. But here, he's the king. But he probably also noticed someone in the background turning their body into sand. What? Sir Crocodile immediately goes for Whitebeard in his sand form, and now that I think about it, what would that even look like with the 6 eyes? Like, how does that even work? Does Gojo just see a man melt into sand, or do the organs sort of compress and then shatter and then recreate themselves? And God, like that would probably look really weird if that's how that would work. But speaking of imagining things and visualizing them, I think that Gojo would realize in that moment that nobody here seems to have cursed energy. I mean, he does, but he can't necessarily analyze the battlefield the way that he normally would in his own universe. But at the same time, others do seem to be predicting moves, dodging techniques, and landing decisive blows on targets they shouldn't otherwise be able to. For example, that weird vampire dude here is just no-scoping people with laser beams from his sword, and that runaway model is turning men into literal stone by looking at the sky. Gojo realizes that he needs to understand their powers fast here if he wants to save Cowboy Megumi. Now to do that, I think that he would just go and lock his eyes on a few key players on the battlefield. Mihawk, Doflamingo, and Kuma in particular are standouts to me here. That's because they're all strong users of various types of Haki, and with his incredible processing powers, Gojo would really figure out how to apply Haki himself. Kuma is just a cyborg beast, and I sure would assume that he has some really strong armament Haki from the way that he laid into Saint Saturn on Egghead Island here. Like, that punch had some serious willpower behind it to deal this much damage to this giant demon. But it also does raise a really weird question of how he did that, because he literally lost his own will to the world government. How can he even use Haki? Honestly, I don't know. I wish I could tell you, and it probably has something to do with his will being so strong that it kind of got imprinted on the cyborg body, but whatever the answer is, he clearly does, so that's what I'm running with. But in the off chance that he's not, checking out Mihawk would also help Gojo learn armament and observation Haki. I actually don't think that understanding how to use it is anywhere nearly as impactful to him as understanding what it is actually capable of, not yet at least. Because I feel like right now for Gojo, the first order of business should be understanding what his enemies can do compared to him, and not how he can just do the exact same thing right away. I think it's because of this approach why he was so effective against Jogo, Hanami, and Mahito, because he knew exactly what they were capable of or had really good ideas of how they worked as curses. And honestly, after taking even a few extra moments of time here, I think that Mihawk would finally step up to Gojo and wanna fight him. That's right, he is Hawkeye Mihawk, and I'm fairly confident he would notice a floating man who is crushing Pacifista using no Haki whatsoever. So that's right, it is now time for a battle between the world's strongest sorcerer and the world's strongest swordsman. And really, it's probably one of the closest and most badass fights I can possibly imagine at this battle for Gojo. I mean, his skill is incredible, but Mihawk is actually surprisingly similar to Sukuna in how powerful his abilities are. Or, well, I mean, I guess that's what I would say if the Infinity wasn't just completely broken. I mean, Mihawk would probably stand firm and unleash slash after slash at full power. He'd turn around to walk away and be shocked when he turns back and sees Gojo without so much as a single scratch on him. Mihawk's slashes just straight up cannot touch him due to his ultimate defensive move, Infinity. And it's really going to change the course of this battle, and honestly, this entire video. Because honestly, when I started working on this video, I really thought that I'd find someone who could just straight up break through. Maybe Garb, Sengoku, Whitebeard, Blackbeard, anyone. I mean, they all have crazy broken Haki and stuff. They should be able to deal damage to Gojo and ultimately destroy him, right? But as I went back and actually reread parts of JJK to properly understand the Limitless and Infinity for this video, I kind of realized that Infinity is just way too broken for the world of One Piece. Let me explain. Thanks to the fact that Gojo can reduce the speed and create theoretically infinite space between something and himself, nothing in One Piece can really hit him. As far as we know at least, it's not like Mihawk's sword strikes can just cut through space behind space like the infamous world-cutting cleave, and without cursed energy or domain expansion, there's just no way to shut off Gojo's ability. Oh no, okay, I've just realized what I've done. I've made a pretty grave mistake. While I was honestly simply trying to solve the question, could Gojo solo Marineford, I've accidentally unleashed the monster known as Satoru Gojo onto Marineford. I think I asked the wrong question. Of course he can solo them. Now, maybe the real question is, could all of Marineford somehow survive Satoru Gojo? Because I really think that once Gojo realizes that he's the strongest dude out here, he would just get his signature devilish smile and psychotic eyes. He would run through the battlefield like it was that train station in Shibuya, you know, the one where he blizzes like 1,000 curses in 5 minutes. I mean, Doflamingo would probably try to use Conqueror's Haki and get his throat ripped off. Jozo would try and stop him, but would implode on himself when Blue eats him up from the inside out like a black hole. And the biggest issue now is that Doflamingo just showed Gojo how to access Conqueror's Haki, something I'm, pretty confident that Gojo would have in One Piece as well. I mean, he is, in fact, the strongest after all, right? And really, if you think about it, Logia powers are able to avoid some of his abilities, but not all of them. Because with Red and Blue, he could either contain the Admirals by trapping them inside this weird gravity field that he creates, not letting them escape at all from his grasp, or if he wanted to add insult to injury, he could just use his new Haki powers to just beat them down as well. Unless, I guess, they all ran away. I mean, seriously, they can't touch him, they can't kill him, but maybe they're fast enough to avoid him and get out of the dodge here. Kizaru, for instance, here moves nearly at the speed of light, at least depending on what random power scaler you ask, and we have seen Garp leap across an island in a single jump. So who can actually escape here? These two, and then who else? I'm just kidding. You thought that was actually possible? No. Gojo can literally teleport. I mean, sure, people who have future sight haki would probably at least be able to see where he's going and then avoid it, but that's only a few seconds at best. And as we saw with Katakuri and Luffy, sometimes you can see the future, but you're just not fast enough to actually dodge it, which would be the case if anyone tried to step up to Gojo right here. I think especially once he starts learning the other haki types. I mean, once he gains access to future sight and Conqueror's Haki himself, it's pretty much game over, right? He'll be 2 steps ahead always. Now, once he realizes that arrogance, power, and a will to be the best is what really lets Doflamingo and Boa use Conqueror's Haki, Gojo would really quickly learn how to use it as well, let's be honest here. And so with his new Haki, he could easily defeat every soldier and honestly probably anyone less than a Vice Admiral pretty easily. Actually, now that I think about it, I kind of wonder if he could actually infuse his red, blue, and his infinity with advanced Conqueror's Haki maybe? That would be really interesting. Actually, would he just sort of dominate space and people's will? Kind of freaky when you think about it that way. Now, all of this is starting to feel a little bit hopeless and pointless, I will admit. Nobody at this point is safe from Gojo. He's literally too powerful, and it could just completely break the balance of the world. Whitebeard and Sengoku would just absolutely need to team up at this point in order to defeat Gojo's insane presence. I mean, I guess technically he does stop the Marineford War. I mean, sure, it's in the worst way possible for everyone because now they have to join forces like it was God Valley, but he did bring an end to the conflict, so at least some good came from everything. But now the real question to me is, could anyone on this battlefield actually stop him? Surely not, right? After everything we've talked about. Well, as you might have expected, not quite. Gojo is in fact just a complete beast, but there are some really weird abilities in One Piece from certain characters that may actually be the secret key to defeating Satoru Gojo. But before I can get to them, there's gonna need to be a little bit of setup. The admirals could probably remove his eyesight by blinding him and using their ice, light, and lava powers to create a heavily fluctuating thermal barrier around him. And you know that the 6 eyes are described as the sort of infrared vision that sees things inside of people, but I think that maybe this sort of barrier could at least heavily reduce just how well Gojo can actually actively see and also teleport. But wait, no, I think that might actually not be accurate either, because he literally teleports from inside buildings and all over the place, so line of sight, I guess, isn't that important for it. Plus, if he's got future sight now by being in the One Piece world, he could just see everything coming. There's just gotta be some way to stop this dude. Oh, wait. I forgot the literal constraints of my own video. It's Gojo at Marineford, which means there is a solution. Alright, listen to this. I think I'm cooking something up here. To use the super underrated secret powers, they'll first have to disable future sight. And to do that, they're probably going to need to wait for one powerful man to arrive as well, the killer of observation haki himself, Red Hair Shanks. In case you don't know, we learned in the special volume 4 billion, the promo material for film Red, that Shanks can use his Conqueror's haki to actually disable the future sight of his enemies. Actually, now that I think about it, we haven't really seen him use it in the series so far, at least not that I'm currently aware of, so I'm not entirely certain how he does it, but that doesn't really matter here. He can, and that's how One Piece will defeat Gojo. Let's go. So, imagine if Shanks showed up late like usual, but instead of appearing and stopping a Kainu from killing Kobe, he shows up to a Marineford that's been destroyed, burned, and just reduced to shambles. So, you know, I guess essentially the same Marineford he did actually show up to, but this time it's because the hot, sexy, white-haired guy is floating around shooting hollow purples at everyone. I'm pretty sure that Shanks just showed up here to save his Luffy or Ace, and well, I'm sorry for what's about to happen, Shanks, because he would use his own super advanced future sight to see a black sphere erupt out of Gojo in all directions, infused with Conqueror's haki. The light would drain for the entire world as thousands of Marine soldiers and really everyone there have their brains fried by seeing everything, everywhere, all at once. That's a movie reference. Now, the sight is truly terrifying and yet also oddly beautiful. It is of course Gojo's advanced Conqueror's domain expansion, Infinite Void. Shanks can't let that happen though. He needs to save Luffy from this dark future, so he would activate the observation killing abilities and leap in to unleash a full power divine departure. Surely this at least could cut him down. After all, this was the strongest move as far as we know used by the king of pirates after all. But not just that, this moment was crucial. Garb leaps in to unleash a galaxy divide, Whitebeard hits him with a mighty earthquake, Buggy throws a buggy, like all of the greatest warriors unleash powerful attacks and their overwhelming power destroys Gojo. Go One Piece! Wait, that would work, right? Right? Of course not. He still has infinity, guys, and none of these guys can actually touch him. It doesn't matter if Shanks deletes his vision, they would also still get caught in the domain expansion and have their brains melted by seeing all the crazy things in this world like war, love, hatred, and subscribing to the Ohara Patreon. Where did that plug come from? It's a place full of premium and exclusive content from yours truly, but yeah, I'm sorry, Shanks, you couldn't quite do it, but at least your sacrifice won't be in vain. Because from the shadows, the only man capable of defeating Satoru Gojo unleashes his ultimate move. It is Gecko Moria and his attack, Shadow Cutter. Yeah, I mean, I guess this is the only way I can possibly imagine Gojo getting taken out. If everyone at Marineford set up a massive all-out attack that would prevent him from seeing this sly move coming, in this way he couldn't see it due to the information overload and his future side would be shut down by Shanks. And as we can clearly see in Jujutsu Kaisen, Gojo has a shadow, which means that at the very least the Limitless does not prevent it from existing. I swear, this little loophole in physics and how the two anime universes are different is just really cheesy. It's weird, but seriously, try and tell me it wouldn't actually work. Shadows clearly bypass Gojo's infinity, and since Moria's powers take down the opponent through supernatural powers, Gojo shouldn't be able to resist that. For example, we also know that Gojo had to avoid Mahito because soul manipulation does work on him, which means that shadow manipulation should as well, right? I think. I hope at least. And I know I'm probably sounding a little bit like I'm Hakari and this is my let's go gambling moment, but I really think that this could pull it off, potentially. Now, of course, there is a counterpoint here because if Gojo did kill Moria at the beginning of this fight, he's just absolutely screwed. This attack really only works if Gojo is attacked at the beginning before he learns how observation haki works, or in this very specific surprise situation. If Gojo just flicks a hollow purple or stares in Moria's general direction, he's pretty much screwed. But I also want you to remember that Gojo is cocky. He's arrogant. He walks around going, I'm the strongest and nah, I'd win, and that has always been his Achilles heel, as we know. And I really don't think that he looks at chubby old Moria and goes, oh man, I have to kill that guy in particular because this dude is terrifying. No, he probably just ignores him because the hottest woman alive is standing 5 feet away from him. Speaking of which, my girl Boa here is my second win condition. Boa Hancock might actually be able to kill Gojo as well, and it just depends how down bad Gojo really is. Because if he lets Boa do her worst to him and he's into that sort of thing, which we don't know, he might just be into Geto, he would get turned into stone and anyone on the battlefield could just straight up kill him. And well, if he isn't head over heels for Boa, there is one other way I can see her getting him to fall in love with her. Hear me out. If she teams up with Ivankov and becomes a man, I do think with enough fantasy, she could look enough like Suguru Geto to seduce Gojo. Once again, it's definitely gonna be a little bit of a gamble, but look at them side by side. Like the long black hair, the luscious lips, the I'm better than you pathetic weaklings attitude, they're practically siblings to me. And so hey, even if you want to try and lie to yourself and say that Gojo wasn't in love with Geto, platonic love still exists here, and I think it's gonna be enough to seal the deal. And look, Gojo is completely broken. This is the best that I've got, but maybe I have missed something. Maybe there is an even stronger character somewhere in One Piece that could potentially use their wacky powers to defeat Gojo, or maybe I might have to create one. What if I try to create the strongest possible One Piece character I can imagine, my ultimate fanfic original character who could defeat Gojo, Luffy, Imu, or yes, even Scopper Gaban in an all-out battle to the death. And if you want to see that beast in action, check out this video here where I created him. Otherwise, Shanks so much for watching, Shanks to my Patreon, and I will see you in the next one.